Today on Rambling About Cars, it's debuts part 2. We're going to talk about the new Honda HR-V, the Buick Electra-X concept that we didn't get to last week. There's a new Ram TRX Sandblast, possibly some BMWs. Apple CarPlay's got a new generation coming. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the project show that I'm getting next week and my adventure coming up. And then it's time for a front-wheel drive cheap car challenge to prove to all you naysayers that front-wheel drive isn't wrong-wheel drive, even though I drive rear-wheel drive car now. So without further ado, it is podcast time. I am Christopher Smith and Mr. Christopher Bruce. I'm just getting ahead of myself. It's across the way. How you doing, man?
I've been better. I am in allergy hell today. For anyone who's watching the YouTube version, if you see me start tearing up, I'm not sad. I just literally just have allergy pressure just right in front of my face right now. I will be hitting mute if I have to sneeze at all, but please bear with me.
If it's going to be a big sneeze, though, like one of those monsters where the neighbors call, we need to hear that.
The listeners, people to that.
The listeners need to hear that, like that really deep. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, let's get the show on the road here.
Yeah, let's get going. Let's get going with Honda HR-V because it's just you and I today talking.
Yep.
And Honda HR-V just debuted here a couple days ago. It's basically a Honda Civic SUV. I mean, am I wrong in saying that, Bruce?
Not a bit. You're actually, here's the gallery we have. And if you've looked at the inside of a modern Honda Civic, and I just drove one, 2 months or so ago, 6 weeks ago, it's identical. Like you look the dashboard, the infotainment system, the kind of the mesh grill thing for the HVAC vents, they're identical. Like this is essentially, I like a Civic, but I want it to sit up a little bit higher, and something.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. I think it's a handsome interior.
Totally.
It's the new HR-V. It's a little bit longer than the outgoing model. What is it? 9.4 inches longer. That's a fairly decent jump for the model.
Yep.
A little bit wider.
Wheelbase, I believe, is wider. 1.7.
Yeah, just a little bit longer on the wheelbase. That all translates to more room inside. There's 55.1 cubic feet of storage space inside. Our editor-in-chief, Motor1.com editor-in-chief, Seth Meersma, was on a special event where he saw this in person. He is a very, very, very tall man. If him and I ever have the chance to get together to do a video, it's going to be like twins, where unfortunately I'm Danny DeVito. But he is a super tall dude. And if you go to Motor1.com, watch the video that he did, the first look video, he's sitting in the front. Through the wizardry of editing, he's also sitting in the back. And there's actual space for him in the back. So even though this is considered a subcompact SUV, I think, Bruce, it's still actually quite roomy inside.
Especially compared to the current one. The current one it's not that it's cramped, but you can just see from being over 9 inches longer. That's a lot of length to add. So it has a roomier cabin just because of that.
Right. And I mean, it's a handsome interior inside. Outside, you do get a lot of kind of Civic design cues, I think.
I don't love the exterior.
Especially with the headlight. Well, I mean, everybody knows that I'm not necessarily in love with the Civic exterior either. It looks a little awkward in the front, I would say. I think it looks just a little bit awkward, but I mean, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't know that it stands out. They're like the 3/4 rear view, like we're looking at right now on YouTube, where Motor One podcast on YouTube. You should go and check out the podcast if you have the ability. If not, you can always catch us on stream. We're recording on StreamYard, but you can listen on Spotify, Google, Apple, all the other places where you can stream your podcast. We're looking at it now on YouTube. The 3/4 rear view. I mean that looks pretty good. It looks kind of aggressive, I think, from the viewpoint. I think that's its best view.
I think that's fair. Real quick, want to hit the powertrain real quick. You get a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, making 158 horsepower, 138 pound-feet of torque, and running through a CVT. Brandon Turkus wrote our debut story on this, and he says that maybe we'll get the 1.5 liter turbo that's also available in the Civic Si and very higher grade levels of the Civic.
But for right now, it's just that 2 liter.
Right. Nothing announced yet, but it does make sense if it fits in the Civic, and there's so much shared with the Civic that it doesn't seem like there's anything stopping them. If
it fits, it sits.
That's right.
I had to bite my tongue for like 5 seconds before blurting that out. It's just a cat kind of reaction. But yeah, for right now, it's just the 2-liter. Of course, it's front wheel drive, or you can get it with all wheel drive. 3 trim levels available right now: the LX, the Sport, and the flagship is the EXL. The price, we actually have price right off the bat here. Way to go, Honda! You're doing it right. It's not like Chevrolet where we're still waiting for Z06 pricing after
we've been waiting for that so long,
like 9,000 years. Anyways, Honda HR-V starts at $24,895. That does include the mandatory destination charge. The EXL, the range topper, is $28,695. Of course, you can go a little bit higher than that if you start putting in some optional equipment, but
and all-wheel drive, we should say that was for the front-wheel drive version.
Front-wheel drive, yes.
All trims, all-wheel drive is a $1,500 add-on.
Yes.
So whichever one you want. If you want an all-wheel drive, add $1,500. But honestly, that's not that bad. So that means you're going to get you're going to get the EXL, the high range, with all-wheel drive for, what would that be? Just $30,500, something like that.
Dude, don't ask me to do math on the fly. I'll be like, it's 5. That'll be my answer.
Anyway, for just a hair over 30 grand. And we've talked about it before. The average car in the US now is like $42,000. So, that's well below the average. And, I had that Civic a while back, and the interior was kind of the best part of it. I ended up not necessarily I kind of learned to love the exterior, but it's not my favorite. But the interior was great. I had no problems with it. Good tech, supportive seats. And it seems like basically this HR-V is going to have all of that. So, for the money, it seems like it's going to be a decent vehicle.
I'm very anxious to see how well this does with buyers, because I think Honda has hit just about everything right for this vehicle in this segment. The only thing that I would question a little bit, and it's the same criticism that a lot of people have with the Civic, with the standard Civic, is that the styling is a little bland. When you look at it head on, I wish there was a little bit more dynamic action happening, especially with the grill. It looks like it's just kind of, we need an opening, so here's a pen.
Yeah,
here's where the grill's going to be.
That's exactly what the grill looks. The grill looks too small. Like it just doesn't. And I'm not a fan of like big grills or anything like that, but it doesn't take up enough space in a way. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong, that's fine. I
don't think it's too big. It's just, it looks like an afterthought. If I'm honest, it just kind of looks like an afterthought. The sculpting on the lower fascia, the way they have the side vents done, that works for me. The headlights, it's just that it just looks like somebody realized, at like 10:30 p.m. Before your report is due to the boss. Right. Oh crap! I forgot to put in a grill. Get me a pair of scissors.
Well, and here real quick, I just want, for anyone watching on YouTube, I'm going to compare 3 images real quick. So right now we're looking at kind of a front 3/4-ish perspective. Yep. Here it is purely from the side. And then here's a rear 3/4. And the thing is, like you're saying, from the side and from the back, I got no complaints. It's just the front there's something funky about it that's not quite doing it for me.
We need some of our awesome listeners to do some quick little photoshops and some renderings and send them over to us at podcast@motor1.com. See what you can do with the grill on
face. That. Be a plastic surgeon and give it a nose job and
fix that face a little bit. But even that, I feel like I'm maybe splitting some hairs here because it's not ugly. I just wish it was a little more dynamic.
No, you're right. It's not hideous. It's just, there's something off about it that I can't quite put my finger on.
And if I'm looking for just a small crossover in this segment, the HR-V really has my attention right now. And totally. With the interior, with the extra space inside, it's small without being small, I guess, if you understand my meaning. So yeah, I'm
mean,
excited to see how that goes for
Seth,
Honda.
who I believe is 6'4", he might actually be 6'6" or something like that.
I think he's taller than that. I'm like I'm not even like halfway up.
But if he can fit in the driver's seat and in the passenger seat simultaneously, which for anyone, go on motor1.com, we made a video showing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's enough space for the vast majority of users.
Speaking has somebody that's just a little bit taller. Yes, a little bit taller than Tom Cruise. I generally don't have a problem fitting into anything. So getting his perspective on that was actually really, really kind of an eye opener for me as far as just how much space is in the Honda. Mm-hmm. But we don't have just the Honda to talk about, do we? How's that for a segue? No.
Yep, I was segueing as well. We were both on our segways riding around. So for something completely different here, Ram TRX is getting a Sandblast Edition, and it's got it. If I'm being honest, there's not a whole lot that makes it different from a regular TRX. It's basically a color and wheel package.
Mm-hmm. It's a total appearance package. And it'll cost you $100,080. That's after destination. It is a higher cost from just the base Ram TRX because it does include the TRX level 2 equipment group. So I mean, it's already a fairly well optioned TRX. And the Sandblast Edition, it adds a special exterior color called Mojave Sand, which if you're not able to see us on Motor One Podcast on YouTube, it's like it's just a very light tan. It's a very light,
it's somewhere
kind of sand, a very light sand desert color.
Yeah, it's somewhere between a gray and a beige. It would be the best way.
I saw one person I think describe it as maybe like an ivory sort of color, not white by any means.
No,
but definitely kind of a sandy, just a very light sandy shade. Which to me, I mean, I've never really been big on brown shades, and I would call this definitely kind of in that category of the lighter side.
But it depends on how the light hits it, because we're looking at images now, and in some images it's gray, and in some images it's kind of a brownish. It just kind of depends on how the light is hitting it is what's making the difference.
But the shade, that exterior shade is a really good contrast for all the black trim they have on this. The Sandblast Edition does get its own graphics. It has its own set of 18-inch wheels exclusive to the package that are of course black. Inside you have more black trim inside with the leather and all of that. But
and
then
you kind of get that beige color in the stitching as well.
Yes,
so
you have
that exterior color into the cabin.
Yep, you have the lighter accents inside. Of course, you're going to have a special badge. There's a badge right in that center console inside that identifies it as the Sandblast Edition, and it puts the engine on there, which of course is the 702 horsepower Hellcat V8 6.2 liter. It has the boost pressure in there, the VIN, all the stuff that the truck people love. And yeah, I mean, of course, from there you can get it with various other options that you would be able to get on a normal TRX. What was interesting to me on this one, Bruce, is that Ram didn't really tease this at all.
No, they didn't at all.
They turned to somebody that we haven't really associated with Ram at all. We associated with Ford for years, and recently with Audi. Ken Block.
Yep.
And that came as a little bit of a surprise to me. I'm familiar with Block. I mean, I'll admit I'm a fan. I've met him a few times.
Have you really?
Just a cool. He's a very reserved kind of. He's like the anti Ken Block when you meet him in person versus how he drives. And yeah, they turned to him to help them launch the Sandblast Edition, which is like, okay, what about all of those Raptors that are still sitting in his garage? But
I guess I am speculating about this just in my head. I bet Audi thought, well, we don't have a pickup truck, so
go ahead.
If he promotes a pickup truck, it's not like he's stealing sales from something we're going to sell anyway.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead and go for it.
And I mean, the TRX, I mean, that's the king right now of production pickup trucks. Yep. But they turned to him,
muscle trucks, I would say, but yeah,
they turned to him to basically tease it and promote it. And there were a couple teasers that ran on his social channels a few days prior to the debut, which took place just yesterday as we're recording on Tuesday, June 7th. And
Today's
then
Wednesday, bud. Oh, yesterday was Tuesday. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yesterday
was Tuesday, but as you're listening, hopefully it's Friday. But yeah, he ran. I mean, that whole campaign. I'm sure Ram was affiliated with him. Okay, here's when you can say this. Here's when you can say that.
Oh, of course. That's
but when you're following
PR,
Ram's channels, when you're following Ram's channels, nothing. And I found that rather interesting. And I was kind of pumping Ram for a little bit of information. Is there going to be more collaborations with Block in the future? And I couldn't get any feedback on them from that. But for right now, at least, Ram TRX Sandblast Edition, $100,080. And if you go to motor1.com, we have an article there along with the video that Block did of him thrashing in about doing all the stuff that he does. And, it's a pretty cool video. It's a pretty cool thing to watch.
Yep. Let's transition to a concept now, a concept crossover and a concept electric crossover, and something that, so when we recorded last week, this hadn't debuted yet. And I know during the show, Buick showed off their Wildcat concept last week and we discussed it. And we were saying, we were under the impression Buick was going to call it the Electra, and they didn't. But then the next day they debuted the Buick Electra-X
concept.
And
again, this is, I was just to let people know, this is just a concept. No idea if it's going to go into production, but it could preview, especially what Buick's doing in China. And
this
Bruce,
was designed and developed in China for the Chinese market in mind. So, although you look at it, like, I could see this on the road in the United States. Certainly.
Oh, sure. Nothing, no problem.
No
problem. It's technically, I guess, a crossover, but it's a very kind of low slung coupe-ish crossover, if you will, with 4 doors. It sits up a little bit higher than normal, which gives it its crossover stance. Unfortunately, being a concept, Buick, they're not really keen to say anything else about it other than here it is. Check it out. Yeah. Here's how it looks. Inside it's got, I think, like a 30-inch. Yep. Just a crazy big screen inside.
Yeah, here, 30-inch. Here, it's a curved screen that's kind of got a trapezoidal shape where the top is longer than the bottom, and it's 30 inches wide. But it's purely a concept, and then you can see down on the center console another screen that appears to be for your HVAC stuff, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Can we talk about that steering wheel for a minute, though? Because I love that has just a real retro feel to it. It's not a small wheel. It's a large wheel. We've gotten really used to seeing, just production cars with smaller wheels, and then concept cars, if they even have a wheel, it's usually something really small, or it's a yoke, or it's like a little rectangle. And this just feels like maybe not something from the 60s, maybe not quite.
No, I totally think it actually, that's my thought, was 60s.
Really? Because when I say 60s, I'm thinking, okay, big round wheel, very, very thin rim with maybe just, one or a couple spokes coming from the sides, or maybe a 3-spoke design. That one's some similarity there, but it's a little bit thicker. It feels like more maybe from like the 80s to me.
Okay. See, what the thing that I like about it is the upper portion of the rim, and I can't tell if that's like ribbed stitching on it or if it's like metal, like bits of metal that are making that effect. So it's up, but it's a really neat look. It's, it just has really good kind of a visual design flair to it. It's that texture, it kind of draws your eyes, and then you have the very smooth shape on the bottom. So you have a lot of contrast there. It's if we want to geek out about steering wheels, this is a good looking steering wheel.
Let's totally geek out about it, because I think it's something that kind of just goes under the radar. A lot of people don't necessarily think about it until you see something like this that tends to stand out from the crowd a little bit more. And from a driver's perspective, what's the first thing you see when you get into the car? That's what you're staring at more often than not. Right. I think it's a pretty attractive design. And to me, it also sends a message. And I don't know if this is intentional on Buick's part or not, but it sends a message of, this is a vehicle that we want you to drive. You're not going to be a passenger in this vehicle. It may or may not have various autonomous functions, but with that kind of emphasis on a steering wheel, this is a vehicle that we want you to drive, that we think you will enjoy driving. And when you look at its profile from the outside, I mean, I think it's an attractive vehicle. It looks like an attractive modern vehicle from the outside. I wouldn't even say it really looks much like a concept. I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that went into production tomorrow.
At least from the exterior, yeah. The interior is kind of concepty, but the exterior, that looks like something that could fit in the lineup. You know, you could debut that later this year, and it would make sense.
And I mean, we know all automakers are going electric. Buick has, especially very recently, emphasized that, hey, we're going all electric too. Don't forget about us. I would love to see something like that in production in the United States. We'll see where it goes from there. You're right, though. Looking at the interior, the wheel is cool, but the seats just have like that very kind of thin appearance.
Yeah. But if you remember, we were praising Buick last week too with the Wildcat concept. We were saying how it kind of looked retro futuristic on the inside with all that chrome and polish and kind of the sharp angles. So kind of bravo Buick designers. You guys are doing some interesting stuff. And I hope it's not just for concepts. I hope these kind of cues end up on production vehicles. Definitely
want to see more happening from Buick. I've had a few Buicks in my my garage in not recent years, but not too far in the past, and I would love to have some more. Right now, I mean, maybe if we take a moment and talk about Buick, we got a moment to talk about Buick because it just. I mean, am I wrong in thinking their current lineup is just kind of stale?
Yeah, that I think that's fair to say. I can't argue with that.
We don't see much variation. We don't really see much even excitement from Buick. I mean, as I'm monitoring the daily internet waves for news and interesting things to write about, I'm just not seeing much activity from Buick in general. So hopefully these concepts can be kind of a new platform to bring this very iconic American brand kind of more to the forefront.
Yeah. What they don't have they have no cars anymore, right? Because the Regal, LaCrosse, everything's dead. It's just crossovers now, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, of course, I was a fan of the Regal Sportback.
Yeah.
You know, as an auto journalist, are we supposed to like all wagons? Yes. But,
well, I don't know if you remember this, but I did that drive following the Oregon Trail in a Regal TRX. That was a fantastic little car. Like, you know, it was plenty roomy on the inside because it was a wagon and you could throw stuff on the back. It had a 2-liter turbo that was fine on the freeway. Like, you know, it wasn't a sports car. It wasn't anything super exciting, but it was a good little car for what it was. So, yeah.
And Buick, if I may also offer a little bit of advice, and I say this in the most genuine manner because I am a fan of the brand, you're following the same line of thinking that Ford tried back in the 2000s, where they thought, hey, we're Ford, let's name everything an F. And that's when you had like the Ford Freestyle, the Freestar, the 500, and it's just like it all blends together. I mean, right now, when you look at Buick, I mean, everything is not B, but E. You have the Encore, you have the Envision, you have the Enclave, and and they're all just various, variations of crossover SUVs, right?
Yep.
Buick definitely needs something a little bit more exciting. I'm liking what I'm seeing with some of these concepts. Don't name it with an E. I know we have the Electra,
but that's an old name. That's a name that has been around for decades and decades. So that's a bit different.
Yeah, but I mean, just call it the GS, the Buick GS. Call it the Buick. I mean, the Regal was always a big one.
Yeah, Regal's a good one.
Anyways, Buick, we love you. Keep going with his good stuff.
Dude, I'm sorry. I have to step away for just a second because I'm having a doggy emergency. So I need to let my pup out real quick because he's sitting here crying at me. So you
go let your pup out.
Apple CarPlay real quick, and I will be literally right back. And I will give my
I'm,
2 cents.
I'm not even going to notice that you're gone because I was totally geeking out. He's already gone. He's already gone. I was totally geeking out over Apple's announcement here just the other day. Of course, if you're an Apple or if you're a tech fan, you know, they did their big developers conference where they talked about the new operating systems, all of that other good stuff, but kind of buried in there, they were talking about Apple CarPlay. And I know a lot of you out there, especially in your modern vehicles, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, those are big deals, right? You want to be able to just hook your phone right in, control all of the functions right from the vehicle as you're going. Apple, in this developers conference, it was kind of buried in the video, and we dug it out of the video. And there's also a press release that you can read if you go to motor1.com to search up Apple, and this should come right up at the top. It was kind of buried in there. Next gen Apple CarPlay brings custom features to multiple screens. Yes, with new vehicles nowadays expanding with the number of screens, you have a lot of vehicles now with digital displays for the driver, plus the center screen for the infotainment. Some vehicles even have then displays for drivers, other displays for back passengers. The next gen Apple CarPlay will not just go up on your center touch screen, it'll also be available for the driver's instrument display and other screens in the car. Yep. So if you have something like, you know, like a new Mercedes where the entire dash is just screens, it'll interface with the car. You'll have your kind of familiar layout that you want on your center screen. You'll be able to customize, and I think this is really cool, Bruce. You'll be able to customize your dash with various gauge layouts, various colors. One of the colors that they kind of previewed was like a Gulf livery. I don't know who wants to drive around with their gauges looking, you know, with the blue and orange Gulf livery.
Here, I'm going to share that right now.
But you'll be able to do that. You'll also be able to use widgets, customize the layouts however you want it. Basically, Apple says they are working with automakers to go much, much deeper on integration and customization. But this was just a preview. It's not ready to launch yet. We're probably not going to see anything happening until at least the end of next year.
Yep,
but
they're saying late 2023, so it's going to be a year plus before we actually see a vehicle with this. But and I don't think they've said whether it's backwards compatible as well. I bet it's not. I don't know that for certain.
I can't believe that it would be backwards compatible. You would have to have the vehicle, unless you're talking about vehicles capable of over-the-air updates where they could do a software update, because it will need to talk to the vehicle's computer system.
Yep.
Because I don't imagine automakers are building their software systems to where just anybody can jump in and change your instrument display, right? Because that's kind of critical information. So, I mean, there has to be some collaboration there. In their video presentation, this wasn't mentioned in Apple's press release, but in their video presentation, they did flash up a screen of automakers that they're working with right now. And I mean, Ford, Acura, Audi. Just off the top of my head, there were probably like 15 or so that they listed, all major automakers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's coming. And I'm into the tech scene, but not really so much into the car tech scene. But I still think this is a pretty good idea. And
yeah, I agree. So what I think is important, and we're going through the images here as we see them, is that it's adaptable to what a person wants to see, because some of these to me look absolutely useless. So I paused it here for just a second. So if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're not watching on YouTube, I should say, you've got the speedometer on the left, and it's just basically just a number.
Just a digital number.
Yeah. You've got your range just below that. You've got navigation display in the middle. You've got a tachometer, which is basically also just literally just a number and a little bar, and then a compass. And like this screen to me
looks like a video game.
It does, but I also can't imagine using this screen. Like it just doesn't seem functional. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other one that they showed, where you have kind of a map and you still have a speedometer and whatnot, it just looks it looks more functional to me. But obviously that is going to be different for every person.
Right.
And that's what I like, is that you can adapt things to what you personally want to see. Because whereas, I know just from me and my wife and driving cars with, different kind of digital displays and stuff like that, she has a preference for seeing information one way. I have a preference for seeing information another way. There's no right or wrong. It's just preferences. And so the fact that you can switch this all around is a really nice, useful thing, in my opinion.
Right. And another thing that the new system will let you do, it will let you switch back and forth between your Apple CarPlay interface and various functions included in the vehicle without having to jump out of Apple altogether. So, I mean, if you want to access a specific app that was built into your vehicle system, you don't have to move Apple CarPlay all out of the way. You can access it. You can access the vehicle system through Apple CarPlay. So, I mean, they're really making a concerted effort to bring all kinds of customization and integration into vehicles. And from an automaker perspective, I almost wonder if that's maybe a little bit of a sigh of relief, because we know we've been hearing automakers talk quite often about the cost of software development as being sort of an unexpected cost that a lot of people aren't foreseeing as being as big as it is, trying to keep your systems up to date. So, I mean, automakers are still going to have systems running their cars, but if there's a deeper collaboration with Apple on various vehicles and various systems, I mean, I almost have to wonder if they're being able to take a little bit of a breath and say, well, all of these features would be cool. Let's put a bare bone system together and we'll let Apple take care of the rest. And then we'll advertise Apple. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know.
I think you might have a point, but I think it's just going to vary automaker to automaker. Because if you look, a lot of them are actually taking pride in the stuff that they're setting up. Like, Mercedes-Benz is the one that jumps to mind. Like, they have a really nicely integrated setup for how they handle infotainment and digital tachometer, digital instrument clusters and stuff like that. Whereas other brands aren't doing that quite so much. And if you're one of those brands that aren't putting that investment in, then this is a godsend, because basically you just tell people, you're the dealer and you just tell them, just use your phone and it's done.
But I have to wonder, for those automakers that are putting the investment in, I'm sure they have people working in the background on stats to try to figure this out. How many of their customers, after all of the work they're putting into these fancy infotainment systems, are then jumping in and hooking up Apple CarPlay and wiping a good portion of it out, right? This is like, well, if we're making this investment and 70% of our buyers are just using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I mean, Android Auto is another one. We have no idea what the future for that's going to be. If that's going to be anything like Apple. Apple, it seems like they're certainly trying to take a big step in the automotive realm.
Totally.
I'm curious to see it. I'm not a big tech person. I'm about to make a 1,200 mile one-way trip in a very non-tech vehicle. So I don't know. We'll see how the future goes. The cars that I've been in with the added tech, I've certainly liked. But I also have this theory that everything with a brain is going to try to kill me at some point. So,
okay.
And I've seen way too many Terminator movies. I'll admit it. Come on. It all comes back to Skynet. We have to mention Skynet.
So real quick, last little bit of news we're going to hit here before we get into Smith's big purchase and some cheap car challenge
fun stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So just wanted to hit this.
But this is fun too.
It is, yeah. So the new LMDh class of racing, which is Le Mans, LM, Daytona for the Daytona series that already exists, and H is hybrid. That series is kind of really heating up. We don't talk a lot about motorsports here on Rambling About Cars, but now that we're actually getting to see some stuff from this new class of cars, it's interesting. So BMW unveiled the design, at least, of their entry into that, and they're calling it the BMW M Hybrid V8 LMDh. We don't know displacement on that V8, and all vehicles in this class are mandated to be hybrid, so they're all going to be hybrid. But yeah, so we're kind of looking at it now. It does get, Smith, I'm sure you noticed this, it has absolutely massive kidney grills on the front end.
Yeah, but it kind of needs it, right?
Well, I'm going to show you the Acura, which does not have that. So maybe it doesn't need it. Maybe they could have done it some different way. But clearly BMW is trying to evoke the M3 and M4 specifically with these big grills.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. And then here is the Acura. Give me just a second here. Acura this is just a teaser for Acura now rather than a full debut. And they basically put out a magic eye painting with their car on it, but you can still get a pretty good idea of what it looks like with just this huge, like, gaping splitter at the front end rather than the BMW design, and these huge headlights and stuff like that. But yeah, this will be an interesting, if you're into racing, if you're into endurance racing, this will be interesting to watch. These cars will start competing in 2023 in the US. I believe some of them will be competing in Le Mans at 2023, and then other ones are waiting till 2024. But at least in the US, we'll be seeing these next year. I mean, Rolex 24 at Daytona is always in January. So kind of January of next year is when we'll start seeing these on the road. They'll all be hybrids, like I said. And yeah, just fun, quick race car news. Just wanted to hit that real quick.
Acura's strategy is brilliant there, because any driver that tries to get close to that car, their eyes are going to cross and they're going to go blind, and then they're going to spin out because that pattern is just so weird. I hope that shows up on the actual race car in the race, because that'll be like the best thing since a completely chrome car that nobody can look at in direct sunlight.
Yep. But yeah, quick race car hit. I want to read one comment from last week. We got one really, really good comment from last week. This is from frequent listener Ted Adam Green. And he said, "It's showtime," in reference to your new purchase. And he has a kind of goes on a long thing about DeLorean, which you and I discussed last week. You kind of like the new DeLorean Alpha 5. To me, it doesn't look quite enough like a DeLorean, and it seems like Ted agrees with me.
He definitely doesn't think it looks like a DeLorean.
No, he says, and why spend the money to buy the DeLorean intellectual property to not make a new one to look more like the one that made the car famous and the IP worth buying in the first place? Should it look exactly like the original? No, but every individual styling element should remain but be updated. You shouldn't have to open the doors to think, oh, this is a DMC. I saw two originals this past weekend at Caffeine and Octane in Atlanta. One was converted to an EV, but I didn't see the gull-wing doors open to know what it was. This new one looks like a generic EV. Could have easily been a Lucid or BYD product. Nothing against them, but if they are trying to make something new and not capitalize on an established heritage and history, the new DeLorean company could have saved money and that they spent buying the name and intellectual property and made the exact same car for less money. I bet they bought the property just to help with fundraising by banking on the yet to be tapped nostalgia factor. If they think the doors are all that made the original, then they are sadly mistaken and won't last to make 88 of these. My own personal ramble is over. Thanks for podcasting, guys.
Well, hey, thanks for rambling with us, Ted. And
totally.
I can understand the criticism, and I think I'm in the minority of people that think that the car is enough of an homage to DeLorean to warrant its name. I will offer this little bit of information, and if you jump over to motor1.com, just search up DeLorean. I don't have the article in front of me, but if I remember correctly,
I know what you're thinking of, and I'm pulling it up right now.
DeLorean, the new DeLorean, isn't planning to make just one car. They're going to be offering additional models, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's possible that we will see a future vehicle, perhaps a dedicated two-door that's going to look more like the original, that might kind of pull on some of those heartstrings a little bit more. That's certainly something to consider here. The DeLorean Alpha 5, yeah, I think Sure. I mean, they could make it a little bit more like the DeLorean of old, but I'm going to stand by what I said last week. I think they're building a modern vehicle that has a very, very modern presence about it. I always kind of frown when I see brands trying to go too much in the retro direction, because I mean, it's easy to just build an old car over again, right? It's easy to build an old car over again. It's extremely difficult to create something brand new that still captures a little bit of the old. And I mean, and that's kind of my take on that. Bruce, I know you're concentrating on trying to find that article.
Yeah, and I couldn't find it, but I like your optimism. Yeah, I like your optimism. I don't 1,000% agree with it, but I think you have good points. I think it's fair to expect a new company to do something new. I wish this maybe wasn't quite as radical of a difference, but on the whole, I think you're probably right about what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about the internet. There is room for a vast majority of opinions, even mine that sometimes go kind of weirdly off the rails.
And good luck to DeLorean, the new DeLorean. You know, I hope they make their 88 Alpha 5s and then they can keep going from there and actually, you know, and be a legitimate automaker and do more than the original DeLorean ever did. Like, you know, the original DeLorean, they only made cars for, I think it was 2.5 years, maybe just barely 3 years. So, hey, but do better than that. Good, you know, go for it, guys.
I would agree. If we're going to talk retro, Ford, if you ever want to bring back sedans, I know you resurrected the Taurus show once, and I'm kind of a junkie on these cars. If you were listening last week, you heard me talk a little bit about my future project. I'm going to get just a little bit of a slideshow going here right now. I technically haven't bought it yet. I'm going to finalize the deal next week. It is a 1995 Ford Taurus SHO Moonlight Blue with tan interior. I'm a nerd on these cars, so I know that Ford only made a couple hundred or so of these in that color combination. And the reason I'm getting this car is actually, it's not for me, it's for my wife, Michelle. Today, as we're recording, is actually her birthday. So this is a birthday present for her. She drove one like this. That's how cool she was. We were both driving Taurus shows back in the day. I don't know if that's cool or nerdy, but it worked for us nerds, right? We were driving these cars. She had a Moonlight Blue with a tan interior and slid on a little bit of ice, hit a tree. She was fine. The car wasn't. This is only the second time that I've seen another blue with a tan interior combo. So when it cropped up, I'm in the middle of moving and buying a house back in Michigan. It's like the timing isn't that great to get this vehicle, but it's the second that I've seen literally in like 25 years. So kind of had to get it also. And thanks, Bruce, for letting me talk about this a little bit here. This car was owned by a good friend of mine, Bill Saunders, and I'm getting it through his son, Chris, because sadly, Bill passed away last year. And he was an incredible car enthusiast. The pictures that you're looking at now are actually at his house. That garage next to the car was, I think, like maybe a 2-car garage that somehow became a 4-car garage. With an extra tent garage on front of it, and it was filled with Taurus shows. He was a big Taurus show guy. And I spent a lot of time going to events and hanging out with him way back in the day. And his son, who now works for Ford, also a big show person and a Ford enthusiast. It felt like I didn't have to get it, but it just felt appropriate to go ahead and try to pick up this car. So, thanks, Bruce. I just wanted to share that story. I know just about everybody listening out there probably has a similar story where, okay, car from a friend that was an enthusiast for years. I wasn't able to go to his funeral last year, so hopefully I can take this car, fix it back up. It's been sitting outside for a little while. It's going to need
you can tell it's going to need some tender love and care.
I'm going to have to get some product from Ammo NYC and get that cleaned up. We're picking it up next Wednesday. I've got a trailer all set up. I'm hoping that it at least rolls. We're going to try to get it fired up.
Ooh,
when it was parked,
okay.
when it was parked there, it was still running, but there was a transmission issue. It would go into gear, but it wouldn't shift. So, and Bill over the years, with like another 4 or 5 shows in the garage, I mean, he's got enough parts in there to basically rebuild another one, right? So we're going to try to get it fired up. Bill would go out like every year or so, turn the engine over, fire it up. Don't know if it's going to fire up. If it does, hey, we'll drive it up on the trailer. If not, we'll just get an Army and push it up on the trailer. But that's going to go to my eventual new home that I'm doing some work on next week in Michigan, which means that I am not going to be on the podcast next week. But if you want to follow me along on Twitter at CHWriting, I'll post some occasional updates from my trip to finance this purchase instead of renting a car like I usually do, which would have been about $1,100, which is just about what I paid for the car. I'm going to drive my very, very loud 1995 Ford Mustang GT. RIP my ears because it does have a very loud exhaust system. I'm hopefully going to get 20 miles to the gallon on the highway. It'll be a pricey trip, but I'm excited to go back, see my parents, get this whole house thing going. This will be the first show I've had in several years. I think this is going to be show number 13. I know the cars pretty well. This will be one where I'm not trying to fix it up to drive it. I'm just going to fix it up to restore it. So it'll be a nice little restoration project. And for the record, yes, my wife is absolutely thrilled with this surprise. I was talking with some of the coworkers. I was like, "Oh, you're getting another show, huh? How does your wife feel about that?" No, she's awesome. She's an amazing woman. She's absolutely excited to get this car. In fact, she worked on, she did a lot of wrenching, a lot of work on the old 95 show that she had. Of course, I'm being a car guy and a pseudo mechanic. I mean, I do a lot when I can. She's absolutely in love with this. Can't wait to get it on the road.
Cool. And so before we move on to our cheap car challenge and finish this up, since we're there, let me kind of give a teaser of next week's episode. So we will have a total of 3 guests. We will have Brett T. Evans for Motor1.com. We will have Seth Mearsma for Motor1.com. And we will have a mystery guest who I cannot name yet because all of that info is still under embargo. But
I know who it is, and you will want to listen.
Oh yeah.
And especially watch if you can.
Yep. And so it's going to be a 2-segment show. Our third guest is going to be on for half of the show, and we are going to talk about the cool stuff that he has to talk about. And then the other half of the show, Seth has been driving, and this is also under embargo, so I have to be kind of cagey with it. Seth has been driving a supercar, and he finally gets to talk about it. And so we are going to do half of the show on driving this supercar that I can't name, and also like kind of the supercars that are coming out in general. And then the other half with our mystery guest and an announcement that this person has to make. So definitely worth tuning in next week.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to step away. No, this is going to be a great episode. I can't wait to see it on Friday. Hell, I might even, if somebody happens to send me a StreamYard link, I might even try to log in on my phone. No, I won't do that.
I can do that. But
you guys have a lot going on. It's going to be an amazing episode. Follow me along on Twitter at CHWriting if you want to see some of the stuff that I'm doing through the week, including whether or not I even make it there in my 27-year-old Mustang. But since we're talking about an old front-wheel drive project car that I'm just going to pour money into again, Bruce and I talked and we're like, let's do a front wheel drive cheap car challenge.
Yep.
Because front wheel drive is wrong wheel drive, right? But
it's not.
It's not. If you want to go out and drift and, just get sideways all the time and opposite lock yourself to the nth degree, obviously you're not really going to be able to do that with front wheel drive unless you do some crazy stuff with the tires. But there are some great fun front wheel drive performance cars out there. You can find them cheap, but I got to be honest, Bruce, we stepped into this with a $5,000 limit, and I thought, there are so many fun cars, front wheel drive, that I've been wanting for years and years.
But I couldn't find
that I should be able to get, and I couldn't I couldn't find like any of my top picks. I'm
yeah,
so
same
upset.
here.
I couldn't find any of my top picks. And for the record,
I found 2 picks that are sub $5,000 that I'm going to show, and then I found one that is $9,000 that is also interesting that I'm going to show. But front wheel drive performance cars on a budget, it's especially older front wheel drive performance cars on a budget. It's slim pickings right now. So
it was much harder than I expected it was going to be. And for the record, I have to say right off the bat, I mean, the default answer to this question is always going to be Golf GTI or Honda Civic, right?
Didn't do either one of those. So good.
Well, I did search some up. Yeah, you can find any number of Golf GTIs.
Yep.
Curiously, not even that old. I mean, I was dipping back in like the early to mid 2000s for some pretty decent looking GTIs that were coming in under the wrap. And I mean, $5,000 for a Civic. How many Civic project cars out there are there out there that you can find for $5,000? Bruce, do you want me to go first, or would you like to go first?
I want to go first because I have
a list of cars. 1, 2, 3.
I only have 3.
I have 12 that I have to decide on here.
This is the front wheel drive car that a lot of people forget is a front wheel drive car because of when it came out and what it looks like. I have here a 1993 Dodge Stealth ES, located. Where is this? Located in the Cleveland area for $4,995.
The Stealth that you were forced to buy because you couldn't afford the RT with the all-wheel drive.
Yep. So this is so I forgot about this. So the base Stealth had a 12-valve single overhead cam V6 that made 164 horsepower. This is the ES that got you the dual overhead cam 24-valve V6 that got you 222 horsepower. So this is the middle child. This is not the twin turbo one had all-wheel drive. The base and the ES were front-wheel drive. And so, yeah. So 222 horsepower. This one's an automatic. We'll go inside in just a second. Pop-up headlights because it's the early 90s and that's the right thing to do. Sporty seats for the era, certainly. They were
sporty cars. I mean, even in the lower trim, I mean, it was still a sporty car, and I think it's a good looking car.
Yeah. Yeah, an interesting car. So it's funny. I pitched this to you and it never got done, but we were writing stuff up about the Indy 500 over Memorial Day weekend, and the Dodge Stealth was almost, and they even put out some stuff with it that was almost an Indy 500 pace car.
I thought it was.
For
1 year. No,
it did the job, but it wasn't the official pace car. That was the compromise.
Maybe I do remember that,
because it was made by Mitsubishi and the UAW did not want a non-American made car to be the Indy 500 pace car.
Yep. So the Dodge Stealth is a Mitsubishi 3000 GT or Mitsubishi GTO, depending on
Japan. I always loved the stubby little wing on the back that for some reason, like, it looks kind of dumb, but it also looks kind of cool to me. I don't know whether it serves any functional purpose whatsoever, but
I would love to have, like engineering explained or something go over that, because it looks like it wouldn't serve any purpose there at all. It sort of reminds me of the wings that Ford did on some of their cars in the 80s, like the SVO, the Ford Sierra Cosworth, where they kind of had that dual wing thing going on in the back that were they were right up onto the windshield or the window on the back. No, it's you surprised me with this one. I wasn't even thinking Stealth. But the only problem there is every time I drove it around, I would just continue thinking it's not the all-wheel drive twin turbo. It's not the RT.
No.
And that would just kill it for me. I hate to be that guy.
You're not wrong. Like, you're absolutely right, but this fulfilled all of the recommendations for our challenge. It had to be fun, had to be sub $5,000, and had to be front wheel drive, and this ticks all of those boxes.
It does. It does.
Okay.
And I have a dozen that tick the boxes. And now comes the hard part. I have to decide, okay. I just need to, this is one that has to be on the list here. We said that the default answer is always going to be Volkswagen GTI, Honda Civic.
Yep.
Well, how about a Honda Prelude? Can we work that in there? Because this is
an early one.
This is a 1989. I always liked the earlier ones, through the 80s. I think the style went up to what, like 92 or so, somewhere around there.
92, something like that.
I almost bought one of these actually several years ago, just as a cheap winter car. This is an 89 Honda Prelude, 2-liter SI, rebuilt motor, bored over, custom header, 2.5 exhaust, MagnaFlow resonator. So this isn't a stock vehicle. This is somebody else's project. Replace the automatic transmission. It's got only 30,000 on it. Says 177,000, but I replaced the cluster so the speedo would work. It has only like 1,000 miles on the rebuild. Still in the break-in process, but she rips. Mechanically sound, a blast to drive. Problem is, needs some body work. I'm not a body guy, so I have taken it as far as I can go. Let's take a look at this engine. The car, okay. Hey, straight up, the car looks ratty. The car looks ratty, but I'm not a total body guy, but I do pretty good. So the body work I can handle.
I never understood why, and maybe you know the answer to this, why those Honda engines breathe from the back. Because if you think about it or just me, and I'm not an engineer, so maybe I don't know, or I definitely don't know, but it seems like you would put the intake on the front and then route it into the front to grab cool air and then send all the hot gases out the back since they're going back there anyway. And I've never understood why they did the exact opposite, but they did it for even in the K20 series. Mm-hmm. So clearly Honda's engineers are smarter than me, but I just never quite understood why.
Nope. Hey, that goes over my head. That's why I say I'm more of a body guy than an engine guy. And yeah, it looks pretty ratty. It's got a big wing on the back. The pictures aren't the greatest here, but it looks solid at least. It's that early style with just kind of the wedge shape going on with it there with the front end with the pop-up headlights. It's $3,500. And here's what's most interesting of all to me. This car is located where I'm going next week. This is located in northern Lower Michigan. Not far where my house is going to be. So in the neighborhood, I'm already getting one project car. Let's not get another one.
Yeah, that's a one at a time sort of thing.
But I've always loved the Prelude. And I was happy that I was able to find. And actually I didn't find tons, but I found probably a handful around, the nation, just through some of not nation. I'm searching within 1,000 miles of my location, which I can get there in one day if I absolutely have to. Okay.
Okay. So my turn. This one, maintenance might be an issue. Mm-hmm. So I had let me show the car first, and then I'll get into the story. This is a 1995 Volvo 850 Turbo. Black wheels, black body, black interior.
How did I forget about the Volvo? My God, I hate you right now.
Price is $3,249. Buyer says, or seller says, sorry, no rust. Interior does look like it's in good shape. He doesn't have that many photos, but the ones he has, it looks pretty good. The one thing I will say is I had my German professor in college had one of these, and it was constantly broken. But they still have that brick shape to them, like the the 240 and the 740 and stuff like that. Turbocharged engine. They're a neat car, and for well under our price range.
Yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily turn away from this thing.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I can't believe I didn't even think of Volvo, and for that matter, I didn't even think of Saab. I wonder if I could find an old 900 turbo. Probably not. Couldn't. Probably not under 5,500. For the record, let me just mention, I wanted a first gen Ford Probe.
Okay.
Couldn't find a single one. Couldn't even really find a second gen. Wasn't really that interested in the second gen, but I really wanted a first gen Probe. Couldn't find, I mean, not even a lowly LX, never mind the GT. I don't know if that's just because they didn't exist, if they've all rusted away or broken, or if the values have just gone up. I was looking for a Dodge Daytona.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A Dodge Daytona Turbo. I did find one, and I have it on my list, but I'm not going to pick it because it's a project car that just needs a little bit too much work. The engine's about to go. But it was an 86 Dodge Daytona Shelby CS. And while I'm at it, I also found a Shelby Lancer that fit just under the wire price-wise. And I would love to get that car just to take it to a Shelby meet.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And make everybody laugh. And
completely troll all the GT350, the GT500 guys. Hey, come on, this is a Shelby too. In the end, though, gosh, I'm still sitting here kind of torn. There's a 1998 Toyota Celica GT on my list that I found. There's a 2002 Nissan Sentra SER Spec V that I found. Actually, this isn't going to be my choice, but let me bring this one up really quick.
Sure.
Just because you gotta see this thing. Oh my God.
Is it the yellow color that they did?
No. Well, it's yellow on the bottom because of rust.
Okay.
I mean, I managed to find this. It's $1,500. It's in Wisconsin. It says it still runs great, but oh my God, it's like, is there anything left underneath it? I don't think so.
That car's lived a hard life.
I mean, that rocker panel looks gone, but I drove one of these back when they were brand new, and I thought about getting one. The little SER Spec V was like 180 horsepower, 6-speed manual. It had a factory limited slip differential up front. It's a fun car to drive. And this was also on my list of stuff to find. And I only found this one. And I mean, little bit of rust doesn't begin to talk about it. But I mean, the interior is cool. Anyway, I got to shut this down because I might change my mind. What I am going to go with for my final pick, let me bring it up here. Oh, I'm still trying to decide. Okay, you know what? Already had that one. So I'm going to go with a 2001 Nissan Maxima SE with the V6 manual transmission.
Oh, wow. You don't see many of those.
You don't see many of them, but they are out there. And I think this is the last year before they went to the 3.5 liter, 260 horse engine. So this one still has, I think it's 222 horse or so. It's basically, it's like the Nissan equivalent to the Gen 2 Taurus show. And I'm kind of a sucker for sedans, but I always loved this generation Maxima. I thought it was a good looking car. This one showing 104,000 miles. It's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, I mean, it's a good day's drive, but it's well under the limit at $3,000, $2,999. And we got to take a moment here. Let me bring up this picture. Darn it. Bring up this picture. Let's talk about that shifter.
Oh, is that what that
looks like the tail end of a mag light that they have fastened on there. That's like the ultimate long throw shifter.
Yeah,
that looks a little strange. And the seat does look a little bit worn.
Oh, totally.
But I mean, this generation Maxima, I thought the styling was pretty cool and aggressive. The SE model, obviously it's the sportier model. It just has a good look to it. And with the V6 and the manual, it's still going to be fun to drive. Heck, it was good enough to make an appearance in the original Fast and Furious movie.
True.
Can't go wrong there, right?
Nope.
Now, my tough decision here at the end was between this and a 2004 Infiniti i35, which is basically a Maxima with like HID headlights.
Right.
But I owned a 2004 Infiniti i35, and I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed that car. I don't know that it was really, I mean, it was fun in that it was pretty fast for what it was. That did have the upgraded 3.5 liter engine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supremely luxurious. But this with the manual transmission would just be, I think, a fun sports sedan.
Let me do my cheater pick real quick. I only want to share this because
I did a few, so
I've literally never seen one of these this inexpensive. It's over our price range, but I've never seen one for this price. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's a scam. I don't know. So here we go. A 1995 Mitsubishi 3000. I know I already showed the Stealth, but this is the Spider with the retractable hardtop for $9,000.
I thought those were only available with the turbo all-wheel drive.
I had to look it up. They were not. You could get them in
front-wheel drive? Wow,
which is the same as the ES that it's the same engine. But yeah.
Well, look at that.
The folding hardtop, and the seller shows it in all of the different states of going up and shows it with the roof down. So it apparently works. It's got, I've just never seen one this inexpensive. I don't want it. Like, these cars do nothing for me, but I remember these things were like 20 grand used back in the day. And
they weren't cheap. And I even worked briefly at a Mitsubishi dealership, and I don't remember ever seeing one of the front wheel drive Spiders. I think there was only ever one or two at the dealership when I was there. Mm-hmm. And they were the turbo models. So yeah, look at that.
Yeah. I just thought for $9,000, I've literally never seen one this inexpensive. I got to share it. Maybe there's some person listening or watching that is near Circleville, Ohio, and wants to put this in their garage.
Well, the price for the front wheel drive cars, I mean, right now, 90s Japanese cars, they're going up. Some of them are skyrocketing. Totally. I think the 3000 GT is going up in like the VR4 trim, right?
Yeah. Which is the twin turbo and all-wheel drive. It's the RT, the Stealth RT, and the 3000 GT VR4 are the same vehicle. Yes.
No, that's a cool find. I can't believe I didn't even think about like a Saab 900. Mitsubishi Eclipse.
Find one around.
Kind of, split my mind too. But
sure.
I would rather have just about everything else on my list for the price other than a front wheel drive Eclipse. If I wanted an Eclipse, I wanted all wheel drive.
Agreed.
Agreed. But what about you folks? Your cheap car challenge, front wheel drive, 5,000 or under. It'll be a couple of weeks before I'm on. So why don't you take some time, do a little bit of searching, send us some finds that you get to podcast@motor1.com. We'll share them on the air. And yeah, you know what? I'm looking forward to a little bit of a week off. But it's going to be a pretty hectic week. When I come back in a couple of weeks, I'm excited. If we have time, I'd love to talk a little bit about what I actually find with the Taurus show, because yes, I'm getting this from a friend and I trust him.
I'm curious about the drive itself. Did you decide to take the ferry? Are you going to sleep on the ferry, or are you driving the whole way?
Not going to take the ferry.
I thought you should have.
I've done it once before, crossing over at night. I might take the ferry coming back to experience it through the day. For the listeners out there, I'm headed from South Dakota to northern Michigan, and the only way to get there is my preferred route. Go up through the upper peninsula of Michigan. It's a very nice, relaxing drive. Or you can scoot across Lake Michigan on the SS Badger, which is a ferry that takes it's a slow ferry. It's about, I think, a 3.5 hour trip across the lake. And through the summer, they do overnight red-eye trips. So you're in the middle of Lake Michigan in the middle of the night. And I did it once before several years ago, and it was pretty neat. But no, this time around, it's going to be actually a little bit cheaper to just continue driving. So I'm just going to drive it on the way out. I might take the ferry on the way back. But follow me on Twitter at CHReading. I'll let everybody know in real time what happens.
Yep. And then for all of our for all of our Rambling About Cars listeners, I should say, we're going to have 2 Motor One guests and a mystery guest next week. So tune in, because it's going to be a fun one.
Totally jealous. That's good. And I know who the mystery guest is.
You do. And you know what that person is going to be telling us about. So
yes. And I really want to hear all about it. So I'll be listening on Friday for sure.
Cool. Well, everyone, that's going to be our show for this week. Smith, I know you have some plans for this evening, so you're going to have a nice evening. But for everyone else out there, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We always appreciate our listeners. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate anything you do to share this show. I was thinking about this today. If you have someone that you know who likes cars, just pick up their iPhone, pick up their Android device, and just subscribe them to Rambling About Cars.
Like, subscribe, it'll just follow.
Right. They'll just start getting our stuff, and maybe they'll keep listening to it as well. So, you know,
once a week, just be nice and subtle about it. You probably shouldn't take somebody's phone.
I'm saying take their phone,
we should probably
to the show, and then give it back, because then we're just going to get that download, and whether or not they listen to it or not. So, you know, and maybe they'll listen to it, and maybe they'll like it, and then maybe they'll keep listening to it.
In theory, that works great. So let's keep going. Let's keep growing the subscriber base. Let's keep having this fun that we're having. So yeah, like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, on all of the platforms that we're on: Spotify, Apple, Google. There's like a dozen or so streaming platforms that we're on.
We're on Amazon Audible. If you do that, you'll find us. Trust me, we're out there. So thanks to everyone, and that'll be our show for this evening, and look forward to talking to you next week. So bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.